You're talking about the most confrontational style of conversation there.
You don't want to have a debate that becomes so heated and like you can never talk to these people again.
I don't want to like be too generous that it looks like I'm carrying water for them. So I have to find a balance. And it's very difficult. I had a conversation with the lady that helps me do my Bridges podcast over like, I don't know what the direction is that I want to take this because right now we're pretty aimless. And I realized the reason why we're aimless is because the original goal of the show is actually impossible. There is no way to
What
bridge.
was the goal?
The idea behind Bridges is like...
It's not a bad philosophy. The thing that brought this up to me that I thought was fascinating is Destiny, the streamer, did a video where basically on stream he was talking about like getting targeted attacks from a bunch of different accounts.
She was shocked that people don't like him. The arrogance.
This is going to be all pro East or what, Russia. This is just going to be all pro Russia, pro anything that's not America. Kim Iverson is like the most bog standard anti-American populist figure.
Now with this election,
she has been for like a decade.
It's given them the chance to reignite that violent strategy.
I think a big question for a lot of people watching is why in the hell do we care?
I mean, we know the U.S. doesn't care about democracy.
That's
There's
good.
some crazy stuff on Twitter. I've been seeing they've been talking about like Winston Churchill might have been the real villain in World War II. Have you seen that shit?
Yeah, that's been a Nazi talking point for a while. And I think partially because of Candace Owens, it's starting to pick up a lot more popularity.
Why?
Why what?
Why is that picking up popularity?
Because Candace Owens has become like a shameless propagator of Nazi talking points. She kind of has been for a while, but...
Why are people getting more retarded? It shouldn't be happening.
Well, that's... I mean, what do you want me to say? Yeah.
Hey, you deal with a lot of these people. I want your genuine insights.
I mean, there's a lot of different reasons for why it's happening. I would say that, are you familiar with the term populism?
Somewhat familiar.
Basically, like, imagine government and economics and imagine all of that being imagine all that being like kind of complicated and you got to study it and it's boring and dry. We can create a political idea called populism, which is actually really cool. And really you just have to support like one big dude who's going to fix everything. Like broadly speaking, that's kind of what populism is. It's some guy who's like for the people and he's going to help the people and he's like one of the people and he's just a cool dude.
Or at least he appears to be.
Yeah, sure. Well, that's the idea behind populism. I think like really broadly speaking.
That's like what Elon is, because like I saw a bunch of, they were talking about the Brazil Twitter ban, and I looked into it, and I felt like it's similar in a way to like what happened in the United States. At least the reasons the judge wanted to crack down on certain accounts, right? So it's almost like it kind of leads back to Twitter, like. The way Elon has handled Twitter, I feel like is making people stupider because he's just allowing the rampant misinformation.
Yeah. I mean, Elon has been, I think, really bad for the world when it comes to media stuff, for sure.
Yeah. So I don't know what you expect me to give you in terms of like entertainment. If we were to debate something, it would probably be like video games, like whether you think StarCraft 1 is better than StarCraft 2
Okay.
kind of thing. But in terms of politics, I feel like you'd probably outclass me.
Oh, sure. I thought you just had questions or whatever. Yeah, I don't know if we were debating anything.
No. I mean, if you want to get into StarCraft, we can, but... No.
Why, do you think Brood War is better than StarCraft 2?
I like Brood War more. At least the campaigns.
Well, I'm never arguing there. That's obviously true. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I was about to expose you super hard.
Yeah. I mean, that's
Fake
basically my
StarCraft
take
fan.
that you've stolen, but yeah.
Wow. How old are you again? Are you 35?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah, no, I guess I just kind of wanted to like come on and talk about that Brazil stuff because I feel like I watched some of your debates and I noticed like patterns in the way that like when you're talking to conservatives or when you bring points up that they can't refute, they have like a variety of different tactics to avoid conceding anything.
Mm-hmm.
And the position you almost like push them to is where they have to basically say, well, I don't know, or I'm ignorant on that. And I guess I kind of wonder like why do you not explain to them the tactics that they're using? Like Like when they say, "Oh, I don't know. I don't know anything about that. I don't want to see the evidence." Like, do you think you could press them and be like, "So you're choosing to remain ignorant on this stuff? Why is that?"
It's hard to, and I mean I do sometimes, but like you're talking about the most confrontational style of conversation there, and once you've gone down that road, you've completely terminated like all future conversations with the person, and you've completely shut down that avenue for dialogue. So like recently I did that with, I'm guessing you're referring to the debate I had with the Jesse guy.
Jesse?
He was the guy who seemed to know a lot about or have strong opinions about everything until I would ask him about it. He's like, "Oh, I don't know about that." Yeah. Yeah. So the issue is these people, their unknowingness here is malicious, right? Because if it was some like random business dealing in Ukraine with Hunter Biden, they suddenly know everything about it. But when it comes to things that are, fundamentally huge issues with the Trump administration, they seem to be totally fucking ignorant about it. And the lack of information there is deliberate and malicious. But when I call it out as that, like I did with Sean, AJW, the actual Justice Warrior guy, that's kind of like you're nuking the bridge. Because at that point, what, is he going to admit that, yeah, I lied because I was being malicious? Like, they're never admitting that. So they have to infinitely retreat into these infinitely smaller and smaller holes of validity where it's like, well, I misattributed the quote. Well, I misattributed the quote in the time period. And I misattributed the quote in the time period and the intention. And it's not actually anywhere near as, like, you're fucked at that point. So it's kind of like the most nuclear option. I do agree, though. And I'm precariously perched on the edge of that, not wanting to give anybody any like validity, and I'm trying to call that out more when I see it. Like it happened in a debate yesterday where people are like, "Oh, well, I have a difference of opinion." You're like, "No, you don't have a difference in opinion. You're an actual subhuman, unpatriotic, American-hating piece of shit. This isn't a valid opinion to have here. You keep alluding to this thing that's not even close to this other thing, and you know it. This isn't a mistake, right? You're being a disgusting, evil fuck." But it's obviously because conservatives have gotten to skirt by with basically having the same expectations of them as like a headless child. Once you start calling people out like that, people immediately like, "Oh, Trump derangement syndrome," or they get like really ass mad, and it shuts down the conversation completely. But there is value, I think, in doing it for sure.
Yeah, I suppose I can respect the way you kind of, I guess, would you describe it as like ethics of a debate, in that like you still want to be able to have a conversation with them in the future. Like you don't want to have a debate that becomes so heated and like, like a shit slinging contest that you can never talk to these people again.
Yeah, but the issue is that like I don't want to like be too generous that it looks like I'm carrying water for them, which I think I kind of was earlier this year. So I have to find a balance. And now what I've seen more, and it's very difficult. I had a conversation with the lady that helps me do my Bridges podcast over like, I don't know what the direction is that I want to take this, because right now we're pretty aimless. And I realized the reason why we're aimless is because the original goal of the show is actually impossible. There is no way to
What was the goal?
The idea behind Bridges is like bridging behind like separate political movements and like having challenging conversations with people while still being friendly. That's not possible. The only thing you can do is have a challenging conversation with somebody, as long as you're just challenging them on the peripherals of their beliefs, but never anything that's core. Like these beliefs are absolutely protected, and nobody in the large media sphere, in the alternative media world, will ever have their beliefs challenged in that way. So for people like Tim Pool, for Dave Rubin, for everybody on the Daily Wire, you will never be able to have a challenging conversation with them. You can only nibble at the very, very edges of what they believe in, and that's the only type of speech that they will host. And it's very intentionally done because they don't want the grift to be threatened.
Well,
yeah, I don't even know what maybe you could call it a grift, but it's more just like they know that they're wrong. Like in my mind, because I've tried to sort through this so much, and I say this so much on stream, it's like if there was a guy that was my size on the internet saying shit that I knew was obviously fucking wrong, I would be chomping at the bit for a conversation with him, because one, it's going to be huge for my audience and I'm going to look amazing, and two, I'm going to eat away a ton of their audience. That's just like the best opportunity in the world. Show me a guy who's a dumb fuck with 1 million subscribers, I'm debating this guy all day. But I realize now why the reason why those people avoid those conversations is because they know that they're incorrect and they know they wouldn't survive the scrutiny. They're knowingly making these decisions, knowing that they don't have the factual substantiation for the things they're talking about, which is it's like evil when you work in media, I think.
Yeah. It's an interesting space to work in for sure.
Yeah, interesting.
Kind of glad I'm in gaming, but I also don't, because like I see all this political stuff. It was interesting because like when I saw after the Trump assassination, I was like seeing your response, and I was seeing all these people like come at you, and then I saw the Twitter space, and I was like, okay, I know about Destiny. I don't know too much about him, but I want to like hear what he has to say and hear like why he's going off so hard. Mm-hmm. And I listened to those Twitter spaces, and like you're pretty angry, but I could also detect some of the logic that you had. And so like my personal stance is that like I don't really care who you are. Like I follow whoever has the best argument, I feel. Whoever can back it up, you know?
Sure.
And I feel like the conservative side has almost, they used to have that mantra of facts don't care about your feelings, but now it's almost like my feelings don't care about your facts.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
And like as someone who I would consider myself more of a like my own person, like I don't ascribe to any specific political ideology. I just kind of listen to the arguments. I don't understand like why that whole mantra changed.
Because they
And,
no
like,
longer
why-
have. There's a saying for like attorneys where it's like when the law is on your side, you know, push the law. When the facts are on your side, push the facts. And when neither's on your side, like pound the table or whatever. It's basically that when conservatives were arguing from some factual basis, at the very least, when they were talking about things related to economics, like 15, 20 years ago, like they could push on that really hard. But now conservatives are just completely out to sea. They have nothing. They're unprincipled. They have no American foundation for their beliefs. They don't talk about policy anymore. And all of their takes are rooted in some conspiratorial nonsense for basically everything, for all foreign policy, all domestic policy.
What do you
It's just
mean?
all insane.
Their policy is fear mongering.
Basically, yeah. But it's
Aren't
not
you
even
worried
good fear
about-
mongering. It's fear mongering over shit that's not even happening, right?
Yeah, they're not even talking about the right border. Okay, have you been up north, man? Those Canadians they're the worst.
Trust me, I see all the Canadian commentators, okay, that are invading our U.S. space. So yeah, Jordan Peterson. Oh yeah, I know. Listen, these guys are all Canadians. Yeah.
No, what's really funny is that the border up north, because I'm in Washington, it's so fucking relaxed and chill there.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Yeah, so I guess just like a general conversation about politics and stuff, because I feel like I've been disillusioned from it was like different in 2014 up to like 2019. I feel like there were the conservative talking points felt more like counterculture-esque, or like there was this culture of corporate pandering and stuff like that, kind of invading the space of media, and I felt like, get that shit out of gaming. But now it's like really evolved way past that, past what I initially kind of identified with that, and now I'm like what the fuck are we doing now?
Yeah, and the issue is when people like define themselves in such a reactionary manner. Like I think there are times when it's cringe, when like progressives are pushing too hard on some cultural things. I'm like, this is kind of cringe. But then like when it gets to the point to where like anytime there's like a female character in gaming, now people have like a huge problem with everything. And it's like, this is kind of cringe. Like,
dude, if you want something really, really funny to look over, I found a fucking Steam group, woke content detectors curated list of games. There are over 1,400 games that they have gone through, and like they have little descriptions for each one and how it's woke, and like this is like insane brain rot to me, because like for Starfield it says not recommended, contains overly pro LGBTQ plus messaging, pronoun selection including the option for they them, and here's the kicker: many important people are people of color.
that's a warning thing.
Yeah, that's a warning. It's just
Okay. And like Mass Effect,
So
when
this-
they're like aliens and shit, do those count as people of color or?
yeah, we could. I'm sure Mass Effect is on here. I can search for that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's definitely good. Oh yeah. Homosexual romance options. Yep, it's a slight warning on Mass Effect. Just a slight warning because there's homosexual relationships or romance options. But like shit like this, I feel like is just insane to me that we've lost the plot so hard. It used to be like, at least from my perspective, I've always been a proponent of like fair, good faith media critique. I mean, that's like what I try to do on my gaming videos. So when I see like other articles that were like, Resident Evil 5 is racist because it's an African, you kill zombies, I'd be like, this is like a bullshit argument.
Sure.
So I would push back against stuff like that. But this has gone like so far out of the
Somebody
realm
wants
of
you
what
to, people in my chat really want you to link the thing to me so I can link it to them.
I kind of want to keep it to myself.
Oh, okay.
This is my territory. This is my. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, you guys want to see this, bro? This is like And the thing
Oh
is,
wait,
like,
never mind.
this,
Everybody's linking it now. It's a Google spreadsheet, I think, right?
oh shit, did they find it already?
Yeah. Balloons? Wait, balloons is woke?
Yup. Balloons tower
Not
defense.
balloons. No, not the tower defense. Oh no.
Is that the only? That's the only Bloons game that's woke though. So just TD6, guys. If you want Bloons TD5, it is not woke.
Contains overtly pro-LGBTQ plus messaging. There is a pride flag item available in the trophy store with a pro-pride message. Shit. Oh no,
I know,
Hades? That was a woke game? Homosexual relationship
Yeah.
between minor characters. Optional homosexual romance. The NPC Chaos is non-binary. The NPC Dusa says she is asexual. Fuck. I didn't know these games were
Dude.
compromised.
I know so many. Power World, even fucking Power Worlds, and Street Fighter 6, man.
Wolong Fallen Dynasty contains overtly pro-LGBTQ plus messaging, uses body type in place of biological sex during character creation. Elden Ring? Oh no!
Elden Ring's been compromised.
Okay. Jesus fucking Christ. Terraria? No!
Even Undertale. Luckily, though, Morrowind is good. wait. Check out number 34, Fallout New Vegas. It says, a possible companion has dialogue about her experiences as a homosexual, and that light social commentary. That's right, fellas.
No, not social
Fallout
commentary
New-
from Fallout. Oh no!
Fallout New Vegas has light social commentary. Just a little bit.
Oh, Factorio
Created
safe.
this doc? Someone who has reached like SSJ4 levels of autism.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so I was
Dwarf
probably gonna
Fortress? No.
What's that?
Contains overtly pro DEI messaging. Features LGBTQ plus and diverse dwarfs. Oh shit, they
God.
probably say the same for RimWorld then too, huh? Yep.
Bro, number 59, Helldivers 2. The intro notably features a mixed race family.
You seriously?
I know, dude. I didn't notice it my first time through, but that's a thing, man. That's crazy. So yeah, shit like this, I feel like is. I mean, this is like funny to make fun of, but there's like a part of the gaming audience, because like in the past I've railed against like shitty conservative right-wing talking points on video games, and the same with shitty left-wing talking points on video games. But I feel like nowadays when I make fun of people like shitty talking points from the right, I get more flack for it. As if like I haven't always criticized both sides when they say dumb shit. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah, it's pretty autistic.
Yeah. I just really felt disillusioned from whatever that side represents anymore. Do you feel like the conservative movement has been hijacked?
I feel like there's too much negativity. They don't stand for much anymore besides like hate. As cringe as that is to say. It's just like very, very hateful and very angry at everything. Yeah.
What do you think is hateful about this document? Okay, there's nothing hateful about this woke curated list of games. There's just, we're just keeping a staunch eye out for any people of color that might be important or mixed race families. Like, what's wrong with that?
True. Trying to protect the nuclear family. Yeah.
I'm converting him.
This is wild. This is just wild. This has to be like a meme.
a lot of
Erotic
effort for a
justice
meme.
contains overtly pro-LGBTQ plus messaging, features LGBTQ plus sexual interactions. Not from Erotic Justice. Oh no.
They have a game on here, called "I Got Blackmailed by a Futanari."
Oh no.
In case you were wondering if that game was woke or not, if you couldn't judge by the title or not,
Wait, I wonder if do they
Also-
rate StarCraft here?
Oh yeah, let's see.
Oh, it's not even
StarCraft.
on. Wow, I wonder why.
Do you think it would be woke?
Yeah, absolutely. Kerrigan is a woman, and she's supposed to be like the strongest person in the universe or whatever. Bullshit.
Yeah, true. True. And remember at the end of Brood War, she defeats all the strong men.
Yeah.
Like she defeats Mengsk and Artanis.
Although it is balanced out because at least her alien body has high heels. So maybe they would give her points for that. For good female representation.
Well, they definitely upped the sex appeal in StarCraft 2 for sure. So it got less woke in StarCraft 2, I would say.
True.
For sure.
Oh, these are for only Steam games. Gotcha. Jesus.
Oh,
right.
yeah.
Okay, what else? I've got like an indictment. I need to read over all my friends are all Russian propagandists, surprisingly enough. So what else?
Okay. What else do I want to talk about?
Yeah.
However much time you have. What do you think about all the Brazil Twitter stuff?
I don't know enough, unfortunately. Nowadays, I just don't trust anybody in media, so I don't have time to read through a lot of the documents myself. I just don't trust it. I'm not sure. So I don't know enough about what's going on in Brazil. I definitely don't trust anything that Elon says, just out of hand. But I mean, I don't know enough about the particular situation down there to know who's in the right or who's in the wrong. So yeah, I just don't have a strong opinion on it.
Yeah. I need to do more research myself. What the first impression I have is that Brazil also had an insurrection against their government, like the right wing guy had.
Yeah, somebody actually emailed me this. Yeah,
from my memory, he had actually seen what Donald Trump had did on January 6th and preemptively planned to claim election fraud even before I think the votes were counted or totally counted.
Mm-hmm.
And so it seems like, from my perspective, this judge that's trying to get these accounts banned is because they're spreading misinformation that has in the past incited acts of political violence. And so it's like, do we take that stuff down once it becomes a threat? Should Elon take that stuff down? Should Twitter take that stuff down?
The problem is that in order to even begin having this conversation, people need to be honest about what it is. And until people are ready to be honest, there's just no conversation that's ready to be had. This is true of so many things in today's society. Like, for instance, making guns legal and accessible to everybody means that there's going to be more gun violence. That's it's a fact that's been borne out in so much research. If you're trying to say that the Second Amendment is good and we should have guns because it means less violence because people can protect themselves, then you don't deserve to have the conversation because you can't engage with it. You don't even have the reality foundation, right? The factual basis is necessary so that then you can begin to have the conversation of, okay, well, I think that guns are important for XYZ reasons. I understand that these are the costs to having firearms available, but let's see if we think that the costs available, or I'm sorry, if the costs that are incurred by these things being available are worth the benefits of having them available, right? And that's the conversation that needs to happen. But people don't even want to honestly engage with it. And it's the same thing with harmful speech like this. As soon as you say okay, well, let's talk about misinformation and and disinformation. Do you think that this should be regulated because of all the harm that it causes? The conversation doesn't start with people saying well, the First Amendment guarantees that even harmful speech and stuff that could cause bad things, right? Instead, they'll say oh, there's no evidence of that. Oh, disinformation? What do you think is disinformation? The Mueller report? What about Russiagate, right? They won't even begin to engage with that. And all the things that you're talking about as disinformation, most of the people on the other side that you need to talk to all think it's real. So it's an impossible to even start conversation. But yeah, I think it is severely damaging though to the planet. A democracy only works with an informed public, and now you have an entire media apparatus that's literally working to undermine an informed public, which would undermine the democracy, which would cause the country to fail. So what do you do about it? I don't know.
Yeah, especially when the guy who purchased one of the biggest social media sites has basically made it a spawning pool for all sorts of disinformation. Mm-hmm. I think I saw something, again, not 100% verifiable, but I wonder if Elon has stopped allowing community notes on his posts or on some of them in regards to Brazil. I saw someone point that out, but that was I wouldn't say that with 100% certainty. Sure. But here's an interesting question for you, Destiny, on the topic of misinformation. Do you think we should censor or take down flat Earth accounts that purport the flat Earth theory?
I think that it's good. I think that the community noting system can be okay. I think it's basically been destroyed on X, though. It seems like it's just weaponized now. I don't know if the public should be able to vote on it because people like Hassan Piker and other misinformation accounts will just have their audience spam the thumbs down on them so that they get removed. But I think that systems like that, I think, are helpful. But I don't know I haven't like sat down and brainstormed the ideal way to combat stuff like that.
Yeah. See, because my position is that there's that type of misinformation where it's like, we look at it and we're like, oh, hey, that's pretty stupid. Those people over there saying the earth is flat. But do we need to go out of our way to censor flat earthers? Well, not until they get about 10,000 of them and start storming government buildings with weapons. Once they start doing that, then it's like that rhetoric has galvanized people into taking like actions of violence.
Yeah, they also prepare your mind for like other retarded shit too. Yeah.
Yeah. But as far as like free speech, First Amendment, like free speech doesn't protect speech that leads to acts of violence or incites violence in some way.
Well,
and
directly,
I feel like
not just in some way, but it has to be very directly, right?
Yeah. I mean, you could probably create a direct line between claims of election fraud leading to the attempt to undermine a democratic election, couldn't you?
I agree. You absolutely can morally, for sure, 1,000,000,000%. And like people like Trump and other Republicans absolutely incited that type of violence and continue to incite it. But for the criminal charge of incitement, there's a particular test that was spelled out in a Supreme Court case, and it's called the Brandenburg test. And in order for you to be criminally held liable for that type of speech, I think it's 2 prongs. I think it has to be like immediate in time, and it has to be like a direct call to violent action. And you have to knowingly like know that that's what you're doing and that that's what's going to happen. Yeah. The 2 prongs are the speech is directed to inciting or producing imminent lawless action, and the speech is likely to incite or produce such action. But yeah.
So that's a test, huh?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So if I were to go on stage and talk to a bunch of people and say, like, the Jews are destroying this country, we need to do something about it, okay? We've got to get rid of all these Jews. That would be protected speech. But if I get on stage and I say to a bunch of people, hey, the Jews are destroying this country, there's a temple down the street, let's go, we need to get these guys out of here, then that would probably not be protected. If I've got, like, a large crowd of people that are all riled up and ready to go over and, yeah.
Yeah, so that would be harder to prove in, like, a criminal case. I get you.
Yeah.
But morally, it's easier to connect the dots.
Morally is very easy, yeah, obviously. Some people, conservatives will play this game, but they always play it selectively because they're not dumb. They'll play this game where they'll say like, oh, well, where's the criminal charge, right? And then they'll say if there's no criminal charge, then a thing didn't happen. But then when you ask them about like, oh, so then what about like Hillary's emails or Hunter Biden? Well, then all of a sudden they go back to using like a reasonable standard. They change their minds completely on it, so yeah.
Yeah. Rules for thee, not for me.
Yeah.
Essentially. Yeah, I guess I just wanted to shoot the shit a little bit. If you got somewhere to go, somewhere to be, then yeah, feel free.
Okay. Well, hey,
sorry
listen.
if this conversation wasn't that interesting.
No, you're good. It's always fun to chat with people. You've got perms to this room, so if anything ever comes up, you can always just hop in. I'm usually in here when I'm streaming. You can chat and everything. So.
Yeah. If you ever want to do another focus group or something.
Yeah, I'll let you know when I'm done with this next video. That keeps getting eternally delayed, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, is that the big one that you were?
Well, it's the one I focus group you guys for. I'm refining that information and putting it together in a more concise video, basically. So, yeah.
How long is it looking to be?
I don't know yet. We'll see. But my goal is
Gotcha.
my goal for the final video is like 30 minutes or less. But yeah, we'll see.
Are you editing it yourself, like the video, or are you just putting all the information together and then are you gonna?
No, I'll
record
definitely
it?
be. I've got editors to work on that, but hopefully it's like a good video that is not just like me reading stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I look forward to seeing it. I mean, hopefully it educates people on like what's really been going on. Because I was like totally unaware of a lot of shit prior to the assassination attempt. Like I didn't really look into a whole bunch of things prior to that. And I was like, oh my God, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's a lot of information, and you have to find people who can like sort through it and pick out the interesting bits and then present it in an interesting manner. Yeah.
There's so many interesting parts of the whole like insurrection plot, though. Like they got to make that like a fucking TV series. You know, that's like it's like a something writers would come up with. You know.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Yeah, it's pretty wacky.
It's pretty wacky.
It's pretty wacky. Yeah. But that's part of with the next video, I'll include all that. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't want to take up any more of your time, so I'll leave you to it. And yeah, keep up the good work. Nice chatting with you.
Try not to play any accidental woke games, okay?
I'm gonna look at this list and I'm gonna cross-reference it with my Steam library just so I can be a pure gamer, unbesmirched by wokeness.
Good job, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. If you ever want to debate video game quality, let me know.
Okay, I'll keep it in mind.
Yeah. All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Either the guys shitting on India, no pun intended, or the guys saying whatever racist stuff. It's like, oh, I don't even need to take this seriously. This is bots. I don't even need to engage with this mentally.
The tricky part is that there's certainly some people that are real.
Yeah.
So then the question is, how can you discern who is real and who is
all
a
of
bot?
it. Just write off all of it. That's how the easiest off ramp for my brain. It's all fake.
Yeah.
And the ones who are, who cares if it's a negligible amount?
It's not a bad philosophy. The thing that brought this up to me that I thought was fascinating is Destiny, the streamer, did a video where basically on stream he was talking about like getting targeted attacks from a bunch of different accounts, calling him names, saying that he's an idiot, da da da.
That's my bad.
They were, he starts going to the channels and being like, who is
He was
this
shocked
person?
that people don't like him. The arrogance.
That's what I'm saying.
He was just curious.
This must be an internet conspiracy.
Ain't that convenient?
There are guys out there that don't like an extremely opinionated person who knows nothing about the Israel-Gaza conflict and lets people f his girlfriend. I cannot believe this. How could this be?
In case you're wondering why propaganda works and why these bot networks work, I'm so glad I accidentally skipped ahead and listened to him. This is exactly how it works. Notice how when he sees a bunch of videos or comments, or a bunch of comments on videos where he's like, these seem like bots, like this is crazy. All these girls typing this thing on this YouTube video, you know, for this song, that's crazy, it must be bots. But when they plug into something that he already agrees with, oh, well, obviously, every single one of these comments is legitimate. Like, you must know it because this is an opinion that I agree with. Now there are no bots. Now all of it is 100% authentic, like absolutely true and real, certified by a real red-blooded, patriotic, okay, eagle-flying American. These are absolutely true statements, right? But then as soon as it switches, now it's like, oh, well, this must be bot activity, right? This is exactly why this type of stuff works.
Are you AI? I think you might be AI.
I might be AI.
I might be AI.
You're not AI, you're just a bot or an NPC.
He needs to
There's
bring back
no
the
point
cool
where he
blue
like
hair, though. I like the
reflected and
blue
he was
hair.
like, wow, I'm really opinionated on things that are incredibly divisive and maybe the other side might dislike me. There was no point in that.
Like, imagine that. How long has Andrew Schultz even been on the internet? Like a year? Like 2 months? I don't even know how long this guy's been here. Like, yeah, dude, like I've never in my life considered that. Like, it's such a novel insight here that people on the internet might not like me. Jesus, that's such a crazy, insightful thing to consider. Thank you for that. Thank you so much for the education here on dealing with online audiences. My goodness.
Maybe. I think it was that he was just getting comments immediately after posting anything and being like, who are just these people following me?
So now he reiterates the like, okay, well, this was the subject matter. Okay, so it's funny. We had our jokes or whatever. And then he's reiterating. It's like, oh, yeah, okay, but it seems kind of like weird behavior activity. Now, does Andrew here say, oh, okay, yeah, I guess that is kind of weird or whatever. Yeah, but also he's like, oh, fuck him. Or he's going to be like, okay, but like maybe people just really don't like him. Let's see.
Around the internet just shitting on me every chance they get.
Yes.
What is happening?
Yes.
So when he clicks on the profiles and the profiles are like, America is best, #1 country first. And it's like these weird accounts that have weird posting history and it's just all kind of strange. And he starts looking like the profile pictures, and the profile pictures is like a guy that looks like a regular fucking dude that you would see at Walmart. And then behind him are books that aren't real characters. It's like fake AI books that have like strange shapes that are supposed to resemble language, but it's not. And he's like, oh, the picture's AI. The content, he's able to search tweets and find like other tweets of other accounts with other names in other countries posting similar types of content. And he's like, oh, this is a bot. And so it's verifiable and true that there are bots that are creating content.
The question is a percentage.
And following people. The question is the percentage and the question is why.
Well, why makes perfect sense. Like if you hate somebody, but you don't want to go through the time to hate them, you just stick bots on them all day.
Yeah.
Like that
Or repeat untrue talking points.
makes perfect sense. So there is someone who's like, well, I mean, there might be another explanation.
Or on some Dave Smith shit where it's like, I think he was the one that was saying like the government wants to get their access to their bots or whatever. Now just they want to do what the things they really want to do and then distract you with gender wars or whatever. Let's have a bunch of bots and fake news stories and whatever, just getting everybody focused on gender wars. And we just keep getting the money how we want. We keep passing laws that we want. We keep doing all that.
Yeah. Now the other thing that I find very interesting is it possible that these companies or private actors that are basically utilizing like the open, software features of these platforms are basically utilizing it in such a way to influence the opinions and ideas of influential thought leaders within the United States and around the world?
That's the most interesting thing to me.
This is going to be all pro East or what, Russia. This is just going to be all pro-Russia, pro anything that's not America. Kim Iverson is like the most bog standard anti-American populist figure.
Now with this
she has been for like a decade.
It's given them the chance to reignite that violent strategy.
I think a big question for a lot of people watching is why in the hell do we care? You know, I mean, I don't care about Venezuela. I mean, you know, if I were Venezuelan, I would care about Venezuela, right? I don't want to sound like I don't care about people. I care about people, of course, but I'm just saying I don't really care about Venezuela. I think a lot of people don't care about Venezuela. And I think that this sounds to me like a fight between the capitalists and the socialists or the communists, you know, however people want to paint it. And it doesn't, and I don't really care. You know, honestly, I'm like, what do I care if Venezuela is capitalist? What do I care if they're socialist? What do I care if they're communist? What do I care if any country around the world is any of these things? You know, I want to care about America. And so I think that's like a big question that people have on their minds is why in the world are we caring so much about Venezuela? Why in the world are our leaders caring so much about Venezuela? Countries all around the world have dictators or fake elections or coups that happen. I mean, all throughout the continent of Africa, we could start breaking it down country by country and having an issue with every single leader that's in power, right? But we don't pay much attention. But for whatever reason, there is a hyper focus. I mean, Juan Guaido carted into Congress, given standing ovations, right, during the State of the Union address. So what is it about Venezuela? And you wrote a whole book about this, so you are the expert on this. What is it about Venezuela that our government is like trying to make us care about this and trying to get us to?
Is her camera uneven? It is. There should be a little bubble on the on whatever you're balancing the camera on that you can check to make sure, and the cameras will usually have a level as well, but she has a green screen behind her, I think, and the camera is not level. Not good. Not good.
To support, like I said, I don't care either way, whether Maduro or the opposition won. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. So what is it? Why are they doing this? What is their agenda?
Yeah, as an American, I would say it especially doesn't matter.
Oh, and then this is the girl from the Temple show.
To me, how someone, if I were in U.S. government, it wouldn't matter to me how one leader or another came to power. If they control the military, if they control the borders, if they control the trade and industry, I'm just going to deal with them. And so we know the U.S. doesn't care about democracy. That's not, again, why they decide to side with Maduro or not. But
Right.
Let me paint a picture for why Americans...
Just to be clear, the United States does care about democracy, and the entire world does care about democracy. Not necessarily because it's like we want people to be free and happy, and we've got these principled attachments to everybody having freedom, but just because democracies tend to produce more stable countries where you can track like public opinion and what's going on a lot better than you can for a dictatorship. Like democracies tend towards stability and tend towards stable policy more than coups and dictatorships every 5 months. This idea of like, oh well, I don't care who's in charge, or I don't care, is retarded, right? Anybody that does a lot of international business, especially capital intensive international business, knows this, right? You don't want to go to a country, you're working on some project for 8 months, and there's a coup, and now all of your industrial equipment gets expropriated by the government, and you get kicked out or something, right? Like stability in governments is important. It matters. It does matter, but especially before any big investments are made into anything in the country.
Actually do have a stake in Venezuela. And that's a deep historic relationship. Ever since oil was discovered in Venezuela in the 1920s, the United States and Venezuela have had an inseparable relationship. In fact, World War II, the Allied victory in World War II would have been impossible without Venezuelan oil. I note in my book that at the
That too, I have no idea if that's true or not. It might be. I have no idea.
beginning of World War II, England, or Britain, the U.S.'s primary ally at the time, was dependent on Venezuelan oil for 40% of their oil imports, Britain being
Oil imports, United States of America, World War II. Were we even using oil yet in World War II? I'm trying to remember when light bulbs were invented. At the start of World War II, the United States is responsible for 60% of world production of oil, followed by Russia and Venezuela. So Venezuela is up there.
being entirely dependent on imports for oil. By the time the U.S. joined the fight, that number was more like 80%. So Venezuelan oil literally fueled the Allied victory in World War II.
Is the goal with this spreading this brain rot just to get more Americans to support fascism or what? No, it's just to make America be more unstable. When America has instability at home, is unsure about what our mission is internationally, and doesn't feel like we have like a moral right to do anything, it leaves the opportunity for other actors to become more prominent on the world stage. So it opens up the opportunity for Russia or China or other actors to take a bigger role in foreign politics because the United States is beginning to recede, and which we have been, right?
And since 2019, the United States has actually had an embargo on Venezuelan oil as part of the Trump administration's sanction package.
Was Kim Iverson evil or ignorant? Evil.
Designed to deliver Juan Guaido to the seat of power in Venezuela. And
but why do we want the oil? I mean, we're oil sufficient as a country now, aren't we? We also have other countries that produce plenty of oil. Like, why don't we just leave this one country with oil alone?
Well, I agree. I think we should be tapping more into our own domestic reserves and letting Venezuela do whatever it wants with its oil. But it's just we were dependent on Venezuela for around 7% of our oil imports as of 2019 when that ban came down. And there's an existing infrastructure there. We don't even have the full infrastructure in our own country to tap into our own oil wealth the way that we could. But there are.
I don't know what that means, but.
There, we don't even have the full infrastructure in our own country to tap into our own oil wealth the way that we could. But there are these pipelines. There's a whole, Citgo Petroleum was a subsidiary of the Venezuelan state oil company. The gas stations that we use all across the country were tied directly back to Venezuelan oil.
This Anya person is with Gray Zone, and she's Max Blumenthal's wife. Oh, I didn't know that.
Oil supplies. And I would note that when Biden came in with his own oil ban in 2022 against Russia, at that point, that was basically a sanction against the U.S. population, because something I note in my book, and I show a graph of this, when Trump put on the Venezuela oil ban in 2019, as I mentioned, Venezuela was giving us about 7% of our oil imports at the time. Well, Russia's share of the market jumped 7%, I think because they were just buying Venezuelan oil and selling it back to us the way that the Indians are doing for Europe now. But then when Biden came in and banned the sale of Russian oil in the United States, that had the combined impact of cutting us off from both sources. So that was around 10%. The combined total of Russian and Venezuelan oil is 10% of our imports. Do we think that might have anything to do with the high gas prices and the subsequent inflation we've experienced here in the United States? I would say absolutely yes. And the Europeans right now as well, because of these sanctions on Russia, need Venezuelan oil. We might not as much as the Europeans do, just simply because, they don't have the resources that we or anybody else do.
When I'm looking at the top oil producing countries, now this is just oil producing, and I know Venezuela has a bunch of oil that they are not able to produce. I think, because they don't have the refineries that are the infrastructure built, because they are sanctioned to death, right? When I look at this list, yeah, it's a lot of enemies. It's a lot because we go around making a lot of enemies, unfortunately. So number one is the United States.
Says the United States of America, right? The literal fucking world leader of diplomacy. We make a lot of enemies. Well, compared to who? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, it's a lot of enemies. It's a lot because we go around making a lot of enemies, unfortunately. So number one is the United States. We do produce the most oil in the world, but then it's Russia. Saudi Arabia is our friend right now, but that could always change. They're like a wild card, right?
Are they? Is Saudi Arabia a wild card for U.S. alliances right now? How many decades have we been friendly with the Saudis?
Saudi Arabia, that relationship.
It's because they're Muslim and brown. That's why they're wild.
Is in the best position. Canada's number 4. Okay, fine, friendly Canadians. So you've got the United States and Canada there, but then you've got Iraq, China, Iran, Brazil.
Sorry.
But that could always change. They're like a wild card, right? Saudi Arabia, that relationship's not always in the best position. Canada's number 4. Okay, fine, friendly Canadians. So you've got the United States and Canada there, but then you've got Iraq, China, Iran, Brazil, which is a friendlier country, but then you've got the UAE, Kuwait, Mexico. there's a lot of adversaries or enemies.
The UAE, are they adversarial to the United States? These are all part of Kuwait. These are all big OPEC countries. What do we?
Or people that we countries that we bully that are on this list. So do you think that the reason why the U.S. wants to secure Venezuelan oil is because it's like a fail-safe?
Kuwait, the country that we historically are such bullies towards. What the fuck?
In case Saudi Arabia turns on us, and then we need to have another place. And so we would turn to Venezuela because we got that on lock or something.
Kuwait was... Wait, hold on. Let me just make sure I'm not mixing countries up here. Okay, yeah. Kuwait is the country that we saved in 91 when Saddam Hussein was like, we owe you guys a lot of money, but if we go and we blow all your shit up and we take you over, we just realized we wouldn't owe you anything anymore. And then the United States and a 42-country coalition said, no, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, and when it comes to Venezuela, it's not only oil. I think that's definitely part of the strategy, but Venezuela also has the largest untapped gold deposits in the world, and I think in some ways that could be more valuable in the future than oil. And
okay.
And it's important to keep in mind that for much of the last century, Venezuela was top 3 oil producer. It is only since sanctions came into place that let me just step back and explain it this way. Since Venezuela discovered oil, or actually Dutch explorers working for Shell discovered oil in Venezuela in the 1920s, Venezuela developed as a total petrostate and was completely dependent on...
Don't say it. Is petrodollar going to come up at all in this video? 23 and a half minutes. We'll play until petrodollar comes up. I know it's coming.
the international oil market in order to keep their own industry alive. That's the way that neoliberalism works, right? Is that it comes in as part of this international hand, the IMF, and manages your economy, tells you what you can and cannot spend money on, who you can export to, of course, which companies, European and American, that can operate in this case, Venezuela. And they just run it for you, right? The refineries, your oil economy, it's all run by foreign corporations. So Venezuela, and this is by design so that these countries cannot be independent, never fully developed its own production capability when it comes to actually building the refineries and upkeeping them. It's just something that foreigners always did. And so now, since they've lost access to some of the major parts, and for a while, even the inputs, meaning the chemical inputs that they needed in order to pump their crude, because their crude is extremely dense, like molten tar, that led to a crash in the oil economy. And I cite an actual opposition-aligned economist, a major Maduro critic based in the United States, Francisco Rodriguez, who analyzed Venezuela's oil industry and put it up against every major sanction the U.S.
Didn't Venezuela nationalize their oil industry? Yes, and they expropriated, I believe, all of the refineries as well. They took them over. I'm standing on shaky ground here, but I believe that a lot of the issues that Venezuela ran into after nationalizing their oil production is they locally, they couldn't run the refineries as efficiently or as well. They didn't have the domestic talent, absent the foreign, ownership to accurately and efficiently run their own oil industry. So part of the expropriation of their oil industry, taking all of the plants, kicking out all the companies, and then trying to run it themselves didn't work as well. I think it's economic consensus that Venezuela's major economy problems are not related to worldwide oil crashes or anything like that, but it has more to do with the economic policy that the leadership in Venezuela pursued. Combination of very harsh price controls combined with their inability to run their oil industry, combined with oil crashes, all of these things played into it. It wasn't just, people like to say it was just the oil, the market crashes in the oil, or just like a U.S. sanction, which would have come way later. But I don't believe that's the economic opinion. I don't believe so for Venezuela. One thing I will say this is true for everything in economics, but oil especially is a very complicated, there's a lot going on with oil. So especially when you're seeing people like him, any commentator that just talks about oil shit and shows you an oil graph, this is a thing. Oil is just, it's complicated. There are different types of oil. Some of the oil is more easier to refine into more valuable parts. I believe this is why oil, for instance, in the Gulf is so valuable, is because you can sip it out of the ground with a straw. It's easily accessible. And it comes in a good concentration of usable products. It doesn't have to be hardcore refined. There's other oil in Canada, I believe in the West, that the oil is much harder to get to. It's dirtier. It requires more refinement. There's technologies that are invented to get some oil out easier than other oil. There are world market shortages. There are sometimes artificial supply bottlenecks when people want to there's a whole thing related to oil that that market is pretty complicated. If somebody's not speaking they have an expertise in oil, I would be very careful taking any heavy claims they make about the world oil economy very seriously. I would just always be careful of that. I don't know much in detail about oil economies and everything. Also, anytime somebody says petrodollar and they talk about any conspiracies about the petrodollar, you can safely ignore everything they have to say on the economy shit, because that's another weird international conspiracy about how the United States makes everybody trade things, denominate their oil transfers in dollars and USD because they're trying to launch wars against every country and force them to use the dollar, and the petrodollar is how we run the world. And the reality is that when you're trading between two countries, trading in a stable currency where all your trades are denominated in that currency, it's easier to do because it makes your trading easier, right? If I'm going to trade corn with another guy who grows flour, it's easier if we have a common exchange, a currency to trade between, because I might not always want to hold flour, he might not always want to hold corn. Well, that's what we're trading for. But I'm just saying it's easier to do things in another denominated stable currency, depending on the country you are in, is the strongest argument for the petrodollar. But yeah, anytime petrodollar shit comes up, it's always going to be retarded shit.
Put it up against every major sanction the U.S. levied against the country in just a basic chart. And he found that for every major drop in the Venezuelan oil industry, there was a major U.S. sanction that coincided with the date of that drop. And he said that this counted as a statistical smoking gun.
I don't think this is true.
Implicating the U.S. in what he said was a surgical strike on Venezuela's oil economy. Now, in the last few years, Iran, another major oil producer that has been under sanctions for much longer than Venezuela, has actually stepped in There were mass oil shortages in Venezuela in 2019 and 2020. You might remember Iran sent those shipping freighters, those huge ships to Venezuela with all of these chemical inputs and lighter crude that they needed in order to revive their oil production capacity. And it actually turned their production capabilities around. But more significantly, in recent years, Iran has actually signed deals to rebuild Venezuela's damaged refineries. And so that would be a step that completely takes Venezuela out of dependence on the West and will insulate them from future sanctions damage. And I think Venezuela will get back to where they were before. But at that time, this time around, once they're producing like they were in the last century, they'll be part of this multipolar alliance in BRICS. You mentioned Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Russia, China, Brazil, those other.
Haven't heard petrodollar in the context you're talking about. It's probably just not. Wait, hold on. Nah, we use that. We use that term in academia and in finance too. I'm sorry. Let me be more clear. The petrodollar is a real thing, and it's a term that people do use in academia, in finance, in papers. But usually when you hear a layman say petrodollar, the next words out of their mouth are going to be IMF, George Soros, and some other weird shit. Petrodollar is a real thing. The petrodollar is a thing. I believe, I don't think it's just OPEC. I think almost all world trades with oil are denominated in USD. That doesn't sound right. Is that true between, like, say, Russia and China? A lot of oil trade. Wait, I guess we can just look it up. The petrodollar is a real thing, but there's a lot of conspiracies that come behind. Usually, as soon as somebody says petrodollar, there's a lot of conspiracies that immediately come behind it. That's what I'm referring to. But just the petrodollar is a real thing. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Oil producers, well, now they've all started only in the last year openly building this alternative global financial network that will not be dependent on the dollar, not be dependent on the West for their parts and for their exchange. And Venezuela is going to turn to them. I wouldn't be surprised if Maduro survives this latest escalation by the opposition, if Venezuela is now led into BRICS in Russia later this year.
Again, the reason why you want to denominate your trade, there is no conspiracy here. The reason why you want to usually denominate your trade in USD is because if you don't, the Jews are going to kill your entire human population. No, I'm just kidding. The reason why you do this is because you just want a stable reserve currency to trade in. It just makes sense, right? Like at one point in time, companies talked about I say companies, but people had this fantasy of companies paying you in Bitcoin, right? Now, one of the major issues about getting paid in Bitcoin isn't the feasibility of it on the tech side. It's that, okay, well, hold on. My paycheck last week, I got 1 Bitcoin. What am I getting this week? 1 Bitcoin? Is that my payment is 4 Bitcoin per month? Well, what about the massively fluctuating prices of Bitcoin? I don't want to get paid in Bitcoin. Or if I do, you're going to have to change my paycheck literally every week, every 2 weeks. Okay. I'm not going to get paid the same amount. So we're going to have a fluctuate. So there are ways to combat this, right? So somebody might say, okay, I'm going to pay you in Bitcoin, but because I want your payment in Bitcoin to be relatively stable, we're going to peg that payment on something else. Where are we going to peg it on a local currency? Well, no, the whole reason why I'm going to get paid in Bitcoin is because my local currency is not, it's not stable. Okay, well, fine. Well, what's a stable currency? Okay, well, how about the United States dollar? Okay, so we're going to pay you in Bitcoin, but we're going to pay a Bitcoin equivalent to USD, meaning your paychecks are really, they're marked in Bitcoin, but they're really denominated by Bitcoin, but their value is like being tracked with USD, but then we're going to pay you Bitcoin. At that point, you're basically using like a USD reserve backed like Bitcoin, right? Do you see the issue? Like, okay, well, I'm going to pay you in Bitcoin based on the value of the USD because your paycheck is going to be $20,000 a month, but that $20,000 a month is going to be paid in Bitcoin, but it's always going to be $20,000 USD, not whatever the USD equivalent to Bitcoin is, because the Bitcoin value is going to change so much. Does that make sense? Sorry, I feel like there's a clusterfuck explanation, but you want a stable currency because if shit is bouncing around all the time, it's just going to be annoying to try to keep up on prices. It's going to be obnoxious as fuck. Wouldn't you pin it to something like gold or a commodity? No, commodities suck, and gold prices fluctuate all the time, and no one gives a fuck about denominating in that shit either.
So that's something the U.S. would hate to see happen, especially because, as I mentioned, this is not only about oil, this is about plenty of other natural resources Venezuela is rich in, including, as I said, the largest untapped gold deposits in the world, which I think will be a key part of BRICS going forward as they build this alternative system.
So who's behind
Hear that audio?
this then?
You don't get that on bridges and anything else.
I think will be a key part of BRICS going forward as they build this alternative system.
So who's behind this then? Is it our government that actually cares about grabbing, securing this oil and securing this gold? Is it the government players, or is it the oil companies, the corporate companies who care and they're pressuring the government to do? I mean, we've seen over the last few years, attempted coups on Maduro. They try to kill the guy. They named, like you mentioned, named another guy as president, claiming they're all for democracy.
How is using USD even benefiting the USA or the US as much as they say? My guess is this is a macro econ claim, so I don't know, but my guess is going to be this probably doesn't impact the stability of the United States dollar much at all. That'd be my guess, but I could be wrong on that. But my guess is it wouldn't affect it much at all, whether or not other people are using your currency as a reserve currency or whatever. That'd be my guess. How much does other countries using USD reserve currency impact US inflation? How CPI affects the dollar against other currencies. Actually, in a very roundabout way, maybe it would impact inflation. So like, for instance, because the US is a global reserve currency, the US can always raise an almost unlimited amount of money because we can always like sell treasury bonds and stuff, especially to other countries. Like anybody can always buy them. But if the USD wasn't a global reserve currency and it was harder to sell those to other people and more of it was only domestically bought, maybe that would increase inflation. Maybe, I'm not sure. So there might be a roundabout connection to it. Maybe. I don't know. That's a big macroecon question. I don't have the background to answer.
They try to kill the guy. I mean, they've done.
Can you explain what BRICS is and why you think it's a nothing burger? BRICS is 5 countries that no one cares about, all trying to be their own like trading bloc. But it's like, what is BRICS? It's Brazil, Russia, India. Is it China and South Africa? What is the S? BRICS. Yeah, but I don't even know what they do. I say that I'm really just being mean. I don't actually know. Maybe BRICS is more successful, but I don't know what kind of like union these guys even have. There are 9 states so far. Like I don't know how effective this has been if these guys like, because this isn't like a combined market like the European Union, right? Or I guess the US, what do we call it now? It's not NAFTA. US, Mexico, Canada bullshit. What do we call this now? Is it the USMCA? We're not a combined market either, I guess. God, our integration with somebody said this to me, I think on stream a while ago, or maybe it was off stream. It had to do with immigration. Oh, I think it might have been on Bridges. The lack of integration between the United States, Canada, and Mexico, it actually mind fucks me so hard. We are very poorly integrated between these 3 countries. It's very fucking annoying. Not sure if this is what you're looking for. Most countries are pegging their currencies to the USA so that it is safe for lending and borrowing. I don't believe you're allowed to do that. That's supposed to be illegal. I think China does it, or not illegal. I mean, we're talking, but you're not supposed to. But that's kind of like bad faith shit. I don't think you're supposed to do that. They are considered the foremost competitor to the G7. Read the first page you're looking at, bottom of the first section. Yeah, but like even like what does the G7 do? Like what are we? Do we do like trade agreements with just each other, or I don't even know. I truly have no idea. I have no clue. I don't know. I think that it's just the EU is exceptionally well integrated. The same problems exist in Africa. Oh, maybe, yeah. What do you mean by integrated? Like the European Union has so much like freedom of travel, freedom of movement, freedom of trade. It's just so easy to get between all the European Union countries. It's so amazing. And that huge market, it's just so sick. And in the United States, the difficulties between getting from Canada into the US and back and it's just a nightmare. Or everything related to like our immigration, everything is like insane. Although I guess to show for it, I mean, our immigration system is, I mean, we're pretty fucking secure when it comes to like the immigrants that we have here and everything, I guess. So maybe it's... Oh yeah, it was JJ McCullough on Bridges who said it. That's right. I keep forgetting he told me that. Yeah. The USMCA is just an FTA. It's not an integration like you. Yeah, free trade agreement. You're right. But yeah. Would you ever want the US to join the EU? I don't know. Probably not. No. That wouldn't make any sense, I don't think. Maybe some kind of trading union between us, some kind of like multilateral trade agreement. That's always good, but
They named, like you mentioned, named another guy as president, claiming they're all for democracy. We're for democracy, but here's a guy that we're going to instill. And as you mentioned, they then said to any other candidate that wanted to run, no, you're not allowed to run. Our guy only.
The biggest reasons is because Americans don't want free movement with Mexico. Yeah, I understand that, but it's like, hasn't it been the case for several years now that like more Mexicans have left the United States than have came into the United States? Like, didn't that trend reverse like a decade ago? Net flow of Mexicans into United States. An estimated 870,000 Mexican migrants came to the U.S. between 2013 and 2018, while an estimated 710,000 left the U.S. from Mexico during that period. This translates to a net migration of around 160,000 from 2013 to 2018. Maybe it was about 6 years ago. Did it change? I think this trend changed somewhat recently. Oh no. Okay, yeah. So from 2005 to 2010, more went to Mexico. 2005 to 2014, and then 2013 to 2018, it changed a little. I don't know if this counts illegal immigrants or not, though. Would you say our policies like price controls, they had a measurable effect of wealth transfer to lower class people, but an overall negative impact on the economy? Maybe. I don't know if those types of policies tend to work. If it was easier to immigrate to this country for work, it would be so much easier to track illegal immigration. Like, we waste so many resources keeping people out of this country. They should just be here working. It's so stupid. Like, if we just said, like, listen, if you want to come here and fucking work, then fucking A. And then all of our border security could just go towards keeping out bad hombres. It would just be so much. It would just be so much easier. It would be so much easier and better in every conceivable way for everybody, right? Like, what was our unemployment? It's still really low. It's happened, okay? Listen, the Mexicans have been coming and invading for decades, okay? We still don't have all of the white people unemployed. We still don't have Spanish as the national language. Like, they haven't taken over unemployment. Why is this so hard to see right now? Like, we're fine. It's okay. We did it, okay? Just let them come work, and then we'll crack down on illegal shit at the border. But the housing prices, that's true. Having a ton of people come here more would put way more upward pressure on housing prices, which would be spooky. That is true. Someday we'll figure that out. Isn't that how it works in the US? Like, don't y'all have work visas and shit? I think getting a work visa if you're a low-skill immigrant is really hard. I don't actually know if you can. You risk rapid changing the national culture. I unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, I guess, because it conveniently suits my political narrative. I will never, ever, ever take changing national culture seriously again, ever. After conservatives and what they've done to this country in the past decade, I will never, ever take that seriously again. I would much rather see myself fighting alongside my Mexican brothers who come to this country because they believe in the ability to find work and to prosper and thrive here. They are far less authoritarian and destructive in nature than the conservative Christian white people in this country who don't believe in American principles or values, who have no sense of patriotism, who hate this country more than any other country in the world. Like, if it came time to fight for my country, I want the guy that had to crawl through the fucking alligator river, okay, and climb over the barbed wire fence than some retarded fuck that was born here and hates this fucking country because the orange man told him that this country sucks. Fuck those people, right? I want Pedro and put some other Hispanic names there, okay? Because that dude, he really, you know he wants to be here. Let me use the restroom 1 sec. Can I just do, here, quick shout out. If you're a home designer or an architect or a construction worker or whatever, probably by the time you're in construction, it's too late, okay? If you're a designer, okay? I don't know why some bathrooms do this, all right? Just as a quick thing, okay? Do not put, I hate it when people do this. Do not put towel racks right next to toilets. This is such a shit design. Don't do this. Please just don't do this. At this point, just don't even put in the towel rack. Just don't have it and make the customer buy like their own towel rack or whatever. Don't do this. Also, second thing, These types of holders don't do this. These are fine. This is fine. Okay. Why do people make these? They always over time start to like twist down. Just fucking don't. Don't ever do this. Just put in a double supported whatever this is. God, these are fucking annoying. Okay. The worst ones are the ones with the cover on top. Yeah, that's just stupid. I don't know why the fuck. Oh, actually, wait, I'm sorry. I do know why the fuck. I haven't had a cat that does this in a long time, but if you have cats, sometimes you need this because a cat will go in and they'll just they just unroll everything because they're autistic as fuck. I don't know why. But they love it. Done with her. Am I?
Our guy can run, not anybody else, because we want our guy to win. So it's anti-democratic. So they don't care about democracy at all. So who is it that is behind
Have you ever heard about bathroom razor blade walls? What?
this, pushing and pulling, the levers in order to put the maximum pressure on Venezuela?
Well, the title of my book is Corporate Coup, and that's obviously because of the corporate interests that were working to coup Venezuela at the time, or throughout the story that I tell in my book. But at the end, the conclusion that I basically arrived to is that the corporate coup took place in our government a long time ago, and that's why our government doesn't actually work in the interests of the American people. If they
they were just slots to just dump razor blades into the wall, behind the wall? Why the what?
it did, then it would just deal with Venezuela in good faith, accept Venezuela for what it is, and yeah, if you want the oil, make a deal with Venezuela to get the oil. But they don't work in our interests. They just work in this zero-sum game where, yeah, these corporations, Exxon and other players, really can't tolerate allowing these countries to be just even the slightest bit sovereign, and that includes the United States, I would say. So who is behind the opposition at this time? Well, I mentioned Maria Corina Machado and her longtime connections to the State Department. There are photographs of her meeting George W. Bush in the Oval Office back in 2003 when she was being trotted out as the leader of the opposition then. But she is just the force behind Edmundo Gonzalez, who was the official candidate in this election. But his biography also shed some light on the players that are orchestrating this latest opposition push in the street. And that is, well, Elliot Abrams. He's still advising the Biden administration. That's the Iran-Contra indicted criminal for his role in running dirty wars in Latin America throughout the 1980s, who served as the Trump envoy to Venezuela.
He blocked me? What a loser. This is the guy that I quote tweeted today. This is the guy that this is the environmental lawyer guy that was in the DOJ that Trump wanted to make the attorney general to send out the fake letters. He tweets a ton. Tim Pool having this take suddenly makes a lot more sense.
But I don't know that it matters anymore. This is psychotic. Ukraine is the enemy of this country.
Oh, I remember
Ukraine is our enemy, being funded by the Democrats. I will stress this again. One of the greatest enemies of our nation right now is Ukraine. They are expanding this war. Now, don't get me wrong. I know you've got criminal elements of the U.S. government pushing them and guiding them and telling them what to do.
It's funny because you thought for a second he was going to say, hold on, I know, Russia's partially responsible. You thought he was going to say that.
It's war. Now, don't get me wrong, I know. You've got criminal elements of the U.S. government pushing them and guiding them and telling them what to do. Ukraine is now accused, a German warrant issued for blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline, triggering this conflict.
Remember when the Nord Stream was blown up before the invasion?
Ukraine is the greatest threat to this nation and to the world. We should rescind all funding and financing, pull out all military support, and we should apologize to Russia. And they know it. But I don't know that it matters anymore. This is psychotic.
Fuck, okay. We're going to read this indictment after I think the Actman has questions or wants to come in and chat for a second. Judge wakes moments before coyotes start. Oh, look at all the... Wait, what the fuck? Are these cats? No. Sheeps? Goats? Goats. Uh-oh. Oh, they're scared. Look at the doggos. Oh no. Okay, well, this video was nowhere near as exciting as I thought it'd be. Bro, have you seen some of these shepherding dogs? They're insane how good they are at what they do.
Dogs confused with man. So
World's worst sheepdog.
sheep go the wrong way. See what happens.
I have an Australian Shepherd and it's smarter than half my family. Nice.
Here. Come by.
Wow. Look at him go.
Am I interrupting?
No, what's up? How you doing?
Doing fantastic. How about you? Oh shit, is that echo I'm getting? What is that?
Aw. Okay, what's up? What do you want to chat about?
Yeah, I mean, I don't get a chance to really talk too much about any political, social stuff on my channels, but